Hey guys, Abraham here. I just wanted to remind you guys that we upload all of our courses to Skillshare. Skillshare is this amazing site where you can access a ton of different content to learn, improve, and grow as an artist. We have all of our courses available to watch and learn from right now in Skillshare. You can check the description down here, and Skillshare is offering 1 free month trial to their premium membership. With this membership, you're going to be able to access all of our courses and watch and learn all of the amazing things that we cover with all of the softwares. So, what are you waiting for? Check Skillshare down here below. Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to start with the project breakdown. It's time that we jump into an explanation of how we're going to be attacking this project right here. So you've probably seen this guy already from the thumbnail of our videos, but this is the first time in video that I'm actually recording the project. And this is the guy, the hero that we're going to be doing. We're going to be using a lot of different techniques to get this guy into like this very nice final render that we have here. But before we do that, I want to do a quick introduction on one of the most important things that I think gets, forgotten quite a bit, and that's planning your stuff. Like before you do any sort of project, I always recommend you guys to plan things out, because if you plan things out, it becomes so much simpler. Instead of having to guess and then double guess yourself and try to find what the best solution for each specific thing is, it's a lot better if you already know going from the basics. So I know that the body, let's change this to a white letter. The body is gonna be done with C-spheres. That's a no-brainer for me. I'm gonna do C-spheres to make sure that the proportions are right. I'm gonna be doing this guy in T-pose, so I'm gonna write here T-pose, and then at the end I'm gonna be showing you some techniques and tricks to pose the character. So we're gonna be doing this on T-pose. We're gonna have to do a lot of analyzing back and forth to do different kinds of things. Eventually the body is gonna be replaced. It's not gonna be like a full body. It's gonna be several different parts. We're gonna have like the arm guards and the gloves and the face, and everything's gonna be different. The hair is gonna be sculpted. Both the character's hair and the shoulder pads, like all that fur that he has, that will be not impossible, but really difficult to do with fiber mesh, and it doesn't really go with the style of this particular character. The chain that he has, we're gonna be using C-spheres again, and we're gonna be using something called curves, which I believe we didn't cover as much on the first sections of the video, but we're gonna be talking about them later on. So we're gonna be doing curves. The windy elements of the cloth, so the cloak, that's of course gonna be dynamics. So let's call this dynamics. The sword is more like, I'm 90% sure that we're gonna be using C modeler, because it's a very symmetrical element, except for the pommel, because the pommel, I'm not sure if it's with an O or with a U. You might correct me later. But that one's probably going to be a lot of hard surface techniques. So that's one of the reasons why we picked this project, because it has a lot of stuff that we've covered so far in a more traditional realistic element. We're of course going to poly paint this thing. We're of course going to add materials to the thing. And we're going to be rendering the character to get like this very heroic kind of rendering inside of Zbrush. And that's it. The character is asymmetrical. He's pretty asymmetrical, so that's something that I need to make sure I understand. Meaning that, and I'm actually going to draw on top of this. I sometimes like to draw on top of my concepts just to help myself. So, for instance, this thing, like I would say from here down, it's symmetrical. So no problem there. Like this thing is going to be quite easy. This thing is going to be quite easy. Everything is going to be easy here. Up here, we're going to have a couple of different things that we need to consider, because even though the fur is, we could say it's symmetrical, this shoulder part definitely is not. There's a lot of things that I'm not seeing. Like I'm not sure what's happening here. I'm not sure what that thing is. We're going to have to analyze that later on. The face is pretty symmetrical, pretty cartoonish, which is going to be fine. And yeah, everything else is it's quite simple. It's an easy concept. It looks like an easy concept, but it's actually not that simple. So there's gonna be some parts that are gonna be tricky. And one of the main goals of this whole series is that you see how we can utilize all the different things that we've learned so far in order to create a concept like this. Now, I would encourage you to follow along with this guy. Try to do the exact same project for this particular guy, just so that you again further understand and learn the tools and techniques that we're using. Because if you try to do something else, then a lot of the things that I'm going to be doing for this guy might not translate perfectly to that specific project that you might pick. However, later on, after you finish this one, I totally encourage you to go ahead and do other projects as well. So try and do whatever you like, any sort of realistic, super cartoonish, super stylized, anything that you like. You're going to have more than enough tools to work with this kind of elements. So yep, we're ready to go, guys. We're going to start with the first section, which is going to be the blocking of the general character. We're going to be using, again, C-spheres, Dynamesh, and the basic stuff for construction. And then we're going to start jumping one by one, like pretty much, what's the word? Knocking down every specific piece. Now, there's one extra thing that I like to do, and I, again, strongly encourage you to do it as well, and that's to make a list of all the things that the character has, because one thing that very often happens is that you forget about certain stuff. You're like so focused on doing the character that you forget about the elements. So I'm going to go by sections. I'm going to start with the head. So the head has, of course, the face. It has the eyes. I don't see an open mouth, so we're actually going to sculpt this character with the mouth closed. That way, we're not going to have to do a lot of fancy tricks with like topology and stuff. So no mouth, and of course hair. So that's like the head section. That's the three things that we need to worry about the head. Then I'm gonna say shoulders, and we got the fur coat. We got the left shoulder pad, and the left shoulder pad has three sections. Shoulder pad. It has a bottom plate. It has a medium plate, or let's call this mid plate. It has the lion plate. And it has a chain connection, let's call it. Because again, see how this rope goes all the way to the back? I don't know where that thing is going. It's going somewhere. It has to like anchor to something, but we're gonna have to pretty much invent ourselves a solution there. Maybe there's another of these thingies on the backside. Might look weird though, but okay. We need to find what makes sense. So there's a chain connection, which I'm referring to as this circle. And then we got two chains. So I'm gonna write here 2 times chains. And it has a pendant. And let's call it a locket. The pendant is the thing that's hanging, or I'm calling this the pendant, and then the locket is this thing right here. Again, I'm not sure what's at the other side, so we're gonna have to invent later on. And then here we're gonna go to the chest area, which not much to, or let's call this the body, because there's not a lot of things. The only thing important on the chest that I want to note here is the chest belt that goes across the element, or across the character. So the chest belt is there, and then we got the bracers, we got the gloves, we got the hip. Let's call this hip protection, or a belt. It's more like a belt, right? I think it's like a belt. And then we got the greaves and the boots. I'm not sure if that's the name for the whole thing, but it's like the top part and the bottom part. Has some knee pads that are like a separate thing. And then after this, we have the sword. So let me move this up. There we go. So for the sword, it's just basically three parts. It's the blade, it's the pommel, and it's the handle. And that's it. Now, well, of course, in the body, we're missing the cloak, the hang-on cloak back here. And the reason I have the cloak and the shirt as different pieces, it's because the belt is going to allow me to have them as separate pieces. That way it's going to be a little bit easier to manage as well. So all of these things, this is pretty much a preview of how our subtools are going to look, because we're going to have pretty much one subtool for every specific thing, or each specific thing that we have here. So just keep that in mind, because it's going to be important for the general process of our character. Again, this like organization and just general planning before you jump into sculpting, I consider this to be key. I always do this whenever I'm starting projects like this, because if you don't do this, you're gonna lose track, you're gonna forget things, and then it's not gonna look the best it can do. So just do this quick like breakdown. You can copy this one. This one is also gonna be available for you guys on our documents. Let me save this right quick. So let's call this project breakdown. It's available as a PSD if you need to. And yeah, so this is it, guys. This is it for this video. In the next one, we're going to start working on this guy. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next one. Bye-bye. Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to start with our main project after going over the basics, and now we're going to start with the C-sphere skeleton. So I'm going to jump right into Zbrush, and I'm going to go here. I'm going to select my C-sphere because this is what we're going to be starting with. But I want to show you a nice little trick that you can use to get your image in here. There's of course the usual option of going here into our open element or Photoshop file, getting our image as close to the center as possible, and then up here you can have this see-through element. So we can use this as a way to like kind of get the image in there, but there's another way, and that's by using image planes. Now, I personally don't like image planes as much in Zbrush because I find them a little bit annoying and a little bit difficult to control, but it's there in case you need them. So it's very easy. You're gonna go into texture. You're gonna find first your front view, of course. You're gonna go into texture, and I'm gonna change the size here on the very bottom place here on the image plane size thing. I'm just gonna move this down to like a 50%. Because otherwise it's going to be huge. It's going to pretty much use all the canvas. So I'm going to go here into the load image, and we're just going to select a JPEG file, which is our main element here, open. And there we go. So now the image is going to be there. Now the problem with having the image there is, as you can see, I can move the thing around and the image is never going to move. It's always going to be facing on the front view. Now, if that's something that you don't mind, then go ahead, work with this. You can also create your own collage. Like I could grab like this thing from Zbrush and just bring it in here as an image, and it's going to be just fine. But yeah, so I'm going to use this as a sort of a measurement. I think it's a little bit too small, but I mean the image is really big. So actually, let me fix that real quick. So let me show you here in case you're new with Photoshop. This shouldn't be that much of a deal, of course. So I'm just going to go here. I am going to go into the project that we're working on, which is this one, and let's open this image. And what I want to do is I want to just crop this thing so that we're only seeing the important bits. So there we go. I cut a little bit of the handle there. There we go. So perfect. So now I'm just going to save this as Paladin. I believe this is like a Paladin character from like World of Warcraft or something. It looks like that. Now if you want to clear this, Control N, that's all you need to do, and then go back here into texture. Load the image again. In this case, we're going to be loading the other JPEG that we just created. This one right here, open. It's going to be on your folder as well in case you need it. And that's it. So now we can start building. So in the same way we built our octopus, I'm going to focus on having a sphere on the top and a sphere on the bottom right here. So I'm going to move this around. This is going to be like the stomach area. It's going to be kind of thin. And this is going to be the chest, which as you can see, it's a little bit bigger. Now usually the body has this sort of like bean shape, so you always want to have a little bit of gesture on your elements right there. So something like this. Now I won't be able to match it perfectly because of course this character is posed and we're not posing him just yet. I just want to get like the general proportions done. So for instance here, oh, one thing, I forgot to turn on symmetry before starting. It's very important. You always want to have symmetry from the very beginning. So again, top area, which is the rib cage, and then bottom area, which is going to be like the pelvis. Scale down the what's the word? Let's go back to Q. Scale down the stomach area. There we go. So this guy with W, I'm going to move it up, and I'm going to make it slightly bigger with E. Just scale it up. You can, of course, go back to Q and rotate your camera so that you are like as close as possible to like the reference pose. So like this, you can see that's like the center line. So if that's useful for you, feel free to do it. Just keep in mind that we are again following or doing this based on the character. For the legs here, I'm actually gonna add this small sphere first, and then I'm gonna draw another sphere, and the legs are gonna come from that sphere because that sphere that I just added is gonna be my what's the word? My hips. Those are the hips. So I am going to go with Q to the front view and just keep this as nice as possible there. I'm going to add my kneecaps right here. And legs usually have a little bit of volume here and here, which is the calves and the thighs. So I'm going to go with scale. I'm going to scale this up a little bit. You can see that the character doesn't have as much muscle, just a little bit to have something. There we go. Move this back. You usually have this sort of curvature there. Perfect. So that's like the main shape. Again, I'm not worried about like matching the post just yet. That's something that we're going to be doing later on. I just want to match the general volumes. So then I'm going to do the same thing here on the upper area. I'm going to match this with the like the shoulder socket. And then from here, we're going to create the arms. So these arms are gonna go down here to about there. Then we're gonna have the elbows at the middle section, roughly about there. Let's move them back. Usually your arm comes straight, like really straight, and your forearm comes a little bit like forward, like that. There we go. And with my E, I'm just gonna give this a little bit less volume. I'm gonna add a couple of extra spheres there to add a little bit of volume to the forearm and a little bit of volume to the main arm, like that. There we go. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. You can see that right now I think they're a little bit too far apart. So that means that the main like chest has to be a little bit bigger. And then these guys with W, we can move them to the side a little bit. It's a very stylized character, so he has this sort of like wonky feel to it. Now again, don't worry too much about the proportions just yet, because we're going to be working with them in the next couple of videos. Now you can see that the head, it's really big. It's the size of the head is almost the size of the chest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the neck and then the head. Again, just as a general here. This is a very cartoonish character, very cartoonish looking character. So I'm gonna find the ankle there. So that means that my legs are a little bit small. And a quick way to do this is if you go into the scale section, you select this and select the bone. You're gonna scale everything up. There we go. So now if I go with Q, W, sorry, Q. Just step outside of the element. Seems like I added one there. There we go. We should be able to match the general look of the character. And there we go. This is the base mesh that we're going to be using to start the character, but that's not it for this video. So after we have this, the next step, as you already know, is to get this into workable geometry. Now, of course, if you wanted to, you could do the general, you could jump into the actual like fingers and feet and stuff, and I'm going to show you a quick, nice trick that we are going to use in order to avoid doing a lot of work there. So I am going to make the wrists a little bit bigger, like that. And I'm going to clean my canvas now. I'm going to keep it clean because, again, as I mentioned, I personally don't like working with image planes here in Zbrush. I find them a little bit obstructing. And I also think that they work, like it modifies the way your mouse works and the shortcuts work. So if you feel like something's working weirdly, it's probably because of the image planes. I am going to have this image plane, though, on the backside here. So I can just like lower the opacity there to get like a general sense of the scale of the character. I'm going to go down here into the adaptive skin section. And remember, adaptive skin is going to create an actual geometry that we can work with. Because right now we're not working with geometry. You can see we only have 25 points here. So that's not Dynamesh, that's not nothing. But if you press letter A, you're going to see this preview of how the general like geometry is going to look. In this case, it's not that bad. So I'm going to click make adaptive skin. And there we go. I'm also going to save this real quick here for you guys. So in our C tools, you're going to have the Paladin Start C-Sphere. In case you're having issues with the C-Spheres, you can just load this in, make it adaptive skin, and then just save it as a sphere right here. So now with this, I can start working, or I can start modifying the proportions to get this character into its proper position. One thing I like to do is I like to soften everything, because you usually get those weird lines from the, from the Dynamesh. And now it's just a matter of using our old trustworthy tools like the clay buildup to start giving this guy form. So remember, the first thing you want to do before doing any details, any like main or secondary shapes, is the form, the silhouette. So I'm going to use my move brush. I'm going to be using my clay buildup, as you're seeing here, to start giving this guy the form he needs. Now this guy has, of course, a very like strong jaw, a very strong profile on his head. So I'm going to start using my trim dynamic, and I'm just moving this around. This is real time, by the way. I know I'm moving a little bit faster, but again, just try to remember all the tools that we've used before and utilize or adapt or implement them to our workflow here. Now here in the neck, we have an issue. The neck is usually not like this, of course. The neck is like a cylinder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my clay buildup to remove a lot of the volume here and flatten this so that we get our nice little cylinder here. That spike that we have there on the back, that's not something that you usually get. Now, we're not going to get into anatomy. I strongly recommend you get our course, the character creation for games, where we do a demon and we cover anatomy more in depth on that one. But in this case, I'm just going to do a quick like trapezius right here to give you a little bit of more mass. And I'm not thinking about muscles, I'm thinking about silhouette. Like I want to see a strong silhouette of this guy. Now, of course, a lot of these things are going to be blocked in or are going to be pretty much obstructed by all the different details that we need to model, right? But even then, we still want this. One quick advice I can give you is try to have a middle line. So with the mini standard, you can draw like your middle line here and you can draw like your eye line. So even though we haven't done any like details, this is a very traditional approach to this kind of thing, but it works. So I'm gonna carve here a little bit. Then we have like the sternocleidomastoideus, which is a muscle that goes in here. The chest is very puffed out. That's not what we're going for. This guy seems to be very, very fit. So I'm gonna use trim dynamic to trim this down, push the chest back. But we do want to have that nice curvature here on the front of the character. Now I can see on the concept here, see the shadow underneath the pectoral muscles. So he does seem to have a little bit of pectoral muscles. So I'm going to add a little bit of volume here, indicating where I want my pectoral muscles to be. And I'm going to use my trim dynamic to create a little bit of a step. So see that? Just a very basic blocking right there. Now the arms, we usually don't sculpt the arms this low or this close to the body. So I'm going to use my mask pen, or my mask lasso rather, to select the arms, move the pivot point to the shoulder joint, which is right about there, and then invert the mask to move these guys out like this. It's usually about 45-degree angles that I like to work with. And there we go. We just soften this up. And there's a very important muscle that we have here underneath the arm, which is I'm blanking out. Latissimus dorsi. Yeah, latissimus dorsi. It comes from the back side of the character and goes all the way to the front. It's gonna give us our like circular puffy chest here on the side. You usually have the rib cage right about here, which is not gonna create that bit of a deal with us because we have this thing right there. And now, in order to avoid having this like tiny waist, I'm gonna add a little bit of fat here, which are the obliques. These are the obliques that we usually have here on the side of the character. Now, all of this is gonna get simplified. Very, very nicely simplified, but we do want to have like the general shapes right there. On the inside here, I don't want to have like this super skinny legs. Now remember, this is a male character, so he should have some sort of genitalia. We're not going to sculpt the genitalia, but we can add the volume of where we would expect the genitalia to be. Now on the side, we want to add or give him a little bit of a butt. So let's start filling in all of this area so he has a little bit more mass down here. So again, I'm not worrying about anatomy. You can see that the muscles are not well defined or anything because all of this is going to be covered. So whenever you're doing a clothed character, you don't really need to worry about like the details and the strands and the stripes of the muscles. You only need to worry about the volume. So I'm going to use inflate here to inflate the butt cheeks, get them close together, and now let's just give a little bit of volume here to the legs so they get this nice, interesting effect. There's a muscle that we usually have here, so I'm just gonna like a little bit of volume there. Again, not super worried about that because it's gonna be covered by the armor. Actually, all of this is gonna disappear. We're not gonna have a body. We're just gonna have the armor, but it's good to have it. Let me get this image on my other screen just real quick. There we go. Now this guy, the thigh muscle usually pushes outwards like this. And then this guy, the calf muscle, pushes backwards like this. So see how we get this very nice S shape all around the character? That's what we're going for. Now this is a huge head. I normally wouldn't do this kind of characters, but this is how the character looks. So we're going to have to roll with it. Whenever you're working with like a client or something, you're going to do what they tell you to do because that's that's what they're paying you for. So it's important that you never back off from a project. Just take the project and learn, improve, be flexible on the kind of things that you can do. So there we go. Now, before we close this video, I want to add the hands and a little bit of an indication of feet. So for the hands, we're going to use the insert multi-mesh. Remember this, guys? We saw them when we were doing the hard surface things. Well, there's this insert multi-mesh body parts, and this guy actually has some very nice like hands, feet, and stuff. However, there's also this insert multi-mesh tune, which it's a little bit closer to what we're looking for. So if I go here into the feet, for instance, I got this like medium boot or the bob boot. I think the bob boot is good because it's kind of like flat and the character has this sort of flat element. So I'm gonna turn the camera around, select the bob boot, and then just draw the boot. something like that. And then we're just gonna position this with our gizmo, scale it down if needed, so that we get our boot. And that's it. It's gonna give us a very nice boot. It's a little bit long, I think, but we can always cut it. Remember, we can just hide this, delete hidden. Remember, that's why it's very handful to have this like customized interface. And there we go. So this is gonna be a good way to start the blocking of our armor. Remember, right now we're just looking for the general proportions. We're not doing any sort of like sculpting or anything. We're just doing general looks here. I strongly suggest that you have your feet pointing forward. Some people like to like rotate their feet, like, I don't know. They like to do something like this. It looks cool, but it makes it really difficult to do a lot of stuff that we're gonna be doing. So I strongly recommend you don't do it until the very end if you want to have a little bit of variation and stuff. There we go. For the hands here on the insert multi-mesh tool, we also have some very nice hands. So I'm gonna use this vase arm right here. And the reason the vase arm is good is because it has 5 fingers and they're enoughly spaced out that we're gonna be able to work with them. So hands, I usually like to make them slightly bigger than you might think or imagine. I like to curve them out towards the bottom like this. A little bit bigger. And again, we can always like sculpt them and give them a little bit more form. This is just a base mesh. There we go. Dynamesh. And that's it. We got everything ready. So if you think or if you feel that certain things are way too long, way too short or whatever, remember you can always like grab everything. I'm gonna go here to the center and just scale your arms in a little bit because I do feel like the arms are a little bit long. And yeah, since this is the base mesh, this is the best position, guys. So this is the best part for you to fix any sort of proportion issue that you might have on your character. So trying to get like this basic shape is the best thing you're gonna be, or is the, yeah, it's the best position for you. So try to get to this point, guys, to where you have like this very nice basic mesh. I'm also gonna save this as Paladin base mesh in case you want to start this or any other character with this base mesh. This is gonna be helpful for you. But after this, you probably won't have any other like C tool, because otherwise the folder file becomes very, very heavy. You're gonna have the final one, of course, but yeah, part of the exercise, of course, is that you get to do this, right? Like you on your own finish doing this whole thing. So this is it for this video, guys. In the next one, we're gonna go over a couple of techniques that I like to use in Photoshop before continuing with the general proportions of our character. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next video. Bye-bye. Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to be talking about the proportion guides, and I'm going to show you a nice little trick that I like to use in order to get this to work. So here's what we had before. Here's our simplified version of the Paladin. So let me show you what I mean by proportions. If you've drawn before, if you've done any sort of character study, you know that characters are usually measured in heads. So when we take the head of a character, if we draw like 2 lines, let's create a new layer here. Let's draw 2 lines, one on the chin and one on the hairline, usually. This measurement is what tells us the measurement of the character. So I'm just gonna duplicate these lines, and you can see that the second head is landing right there on the nipples, on the chest. That's good, that's a normal proportion for a character. The third head is roughly at the navel, which is also good. In this case, it's going right there. The fourth head is underneath the crotch area, which again, it's working nicely. And then the next head, as you can see here, is going above the kneecap, which again is doing good. The sixth head in this case is going beneath the kneecap right here, and then the 7th head is falling right under or on the floor. So this character is a 7th head character. Usually we work with 8th head characters that make them look a lot heroic. In this case, this character looks heroic and looks very interesting because he has a really big torso, really big upper area, and really small, really tiny, like fine legs. So just keep this in mind. Now, what can we do to make this easier for us in Photoshop? Well, if we go here into Photoshop, we can use those same measurements to see how our proportions are looking. So I'm still using my see-through method here. I'm gonna nail the head right there, and right here I'm gonna start seeing whether or not my proportions are good. And what can I see? They're not good. As you can see, my body is way too tiny for this gigantic head. So I'm gonna mask all the body. There we go. I'm gonna invert the mask. I'm gonna freeze the transformations here with Alt and click on this little circle. Move the pivot point to about the neck there. And I'm just gonna start making the neck longer, or the whole body longer. And at that position, or this position, you can see that now my chest is a little bit closer to what I'm looking for. Probably need to lower this a little bit. And the third head, which is the navel, you can see it's way too high. So I'm gonna lower everything here to make this thing a little bit bigger. And proportions are a great way to find if you're if the general things that you're doing are working or not. So you can see that here's my kneecap. My kneecaps are a little bit high, so I'm gonna bring them lower. And then I'll probably bring the whole feet like lower as well, just a little bit. So checking proportions is gonna be super, super important for us guys all throughout this course. And we're gonna be using this image quite a bit to make sure that everything falls into place. Now, I'm gonna start working on the face now. And for that, I'm gonna move this thing right here. And that doesn't mean that I'm gonna do the whole face. I'm just gonna be blocking in certain areas so that we start getting a little bit of a, better result here. So I'm gonna first make sure that all of that things are done. And I'm gonna show you a quick trick here for the face. If you've done traditional sculpture, and probably you've done it before, hopefully you've done it. If not, don't worry, it's not necessary. But it's always good to have like expertise. Head sculpture, proportions. One of the ways we sculpt the head is we do like very deep cuts on the element. Like we start by doing like this very intense cuts with like a spatula to get this like super fragmented like this thing right here, and then we just build from there. So I'm going to show you very quickly how we can do that. There's a couple of ways to do this. The first one is with our select lasso. So I'm going to use my select lasso, and I'm going to get rid of the eyes there. I'm going to delete hidden, and if I Dynamesh again, you're going to see like this sort of visor thing going in there. It's not perfect, but it's there, right? Now, if I mask this out, and then with my move brush, I move this in like this, I'm going to be able to push this deeper, and the Dynamesh should help me. With trim dynamic, of course, we can get this flatter, and this is going to create kind of like, again, the visor of the face, which is going to give me a very nice way to get like the general shape. Male heads, let me go back into Zbrush, or this male head in particular, you can see that it's a very flat brow, like a forehead, and then very flat nose, and then of course the volume of the elements. So I need to definitely move these things around. So I'm going to start moving what it's going to be, or what's going to become the nose. It's going to be something like this. Again, very flat there. So think about planes. Think about like just like very geometric shapes. Don't think about the eyes. Don't think about the eyelids or any of that sort of thing. Just think about the general shapes of the face. So as you can see here, very flat forehead. There we go. And then very flat nose. And this very flat nose is going to create a little bit of an element there. Let's push it a little bit higher like that. There we go. And then down here, of course, we're going to have the mouth. Now for the mouth, we're going to do a line just to get where the mouth is roughly going to be. Underneath the mouth, we're going to carve a little bit because there's a little bit of a dip underneath the bottom lip. And then we got the chin, which we're just going to block in real quick. Now you also remember that we have the zygomatic arch, which is going to give us a very nice sharp line and sharp highlight right there. This is where light comes into place, because if you rotate this light, you should be able to see where the shadows are falling. So you can use your light as a way to sculpt the general shapes of your element, like this. We're missing the ears. The ears are on the side. The head, you divide it by 2, and down here, here's where we're going to find the ears. So I'm just going to add the volume for the ears for now, like that. He has a little bit of a bigger ear. Usually the ears are aligned with the brow, so right about there. Now I would expect this brow to be like cleaner, so I'm gonna open up a little bit of a space in there. Let's check out the general proportions. It's looking okay. I think the head's looking a little bit small or a little bit long, so I'm just gonna mask the head here, and I'm just gonna bring it down. It's a little bit better. Let's make it a little bit bigger. There we go. And Dynamesh, and we just keep cleaning. It's gonna look super messy, and I always love this part of the project because you guys don't get to see this process at first. You just see the thumbnail with the perfect render, and they're like, oh yeah, I want to do that. It should be super easy. And then you get into it, and it's like, oh my god, this is looking horrible. How do I clean this up? And it's just a matter of moving, cleaning, and sculpting. Again, sculpting is one of those things that's a little bit difficult to teach. It's not like Maya or like Unreal, where you can like pinpoint everyone to the right direction, where you're like, yeah, just press this button, use this shortcut, use this tool, and that's it. In here, you actually have to develop the skills. So there we go. Now let's add the eyes already, just to get like a general shape of where the eyes are gonna be. These are huge eyes, as you can see. So we're gonna keep this eyes quite large. Right now he looks like an old grumpy guy or something. So it's, yeah, roughly kind of like that. And then we're gonna go C plugin, subtool master, and we're gonna mirror this to the other side. There we go. Now if you feel like they're way too far apart or way too close together, you usually want to align this, like the center of the eye should be aligned to the corner of the mouth, but his mouth is like this long cartoonish mouth. Again, trust me, it's gonna look better. It's only the beginning. Now I'm pushing the C depth here. I'm gonna erase, this is something that I like to do quite a bit. I'm gonna erase certain areas and then just rebuild the volumes first. And later we're gonna keep adding the detail. Like, think of this just as a basic thumbnail of the character. It's a very broad nose. So I'm just gonna trim this here a little bit. And it would expect to have like the wings of the nose right about there. Now if you want to, you can add the eyelids. Now he has this very like nice looking sharp eyes, so it's gonna be kind of like this. Like you can see that it's not completely circular, it's a little bit closer to like this. Now, right now he looks angry, but he's not angry, he's like determined, right? So let's do like this sort of like determined look right there. There we go. I think he looks a little bit angry right now, and it's because the brow is way too intense. So let's lower that a little bit more. And usually here underneath the eyes or at the side of the eyes, you're gonna see a little bit of a hole. We don't have enough geometry to work on some very nice eyelids or anything, but again, we're just looking to get this into a nice position. So I'm gonna move now into my neck. And for the neck, and this is something important, as you can see here, the only thing we're gonna be seeing of the character is like a bust, right? We're only gonna be seeing right about here. So the only important areas that I should focus are these areas. Everything else in regards to like muscles and stuff, I really shouldn't be worried about. Now, the neck, as I mentioned before, is a cylinder. And the cylinder usually shoots towards the front. So I'm gonna move my neck in such a way that I create this cylinder. So I'm gonna use again my clip buildup, or I'm gonna use my dimming center to show you what I mean. Like we should have this sort of like cylinder going up like this. So all of these things that you're seeing here, that's extra mass that we really don't have on a human being. So I'm gonna delete that so that we get this very clean looking cylinder. That. And now this is way too thick, of course. So I'm gonna push the cylinder in. And see how everything starts getting cleaner and cleaner? That's exactly what we're going for. Think about any like shirt or t-shirt that you have. You might have some sort of like V-neck kind of shape. That's kind of what happens here. Like the neck, yes, standard brush. The neck goes towards the front like this, to where the clavicles are. Clavicles are these little bones that we have here, and these bones are like the handles of a bicycle. They go all the way back here like this. So we're gonna have this sort of like connection. And this V shape that you see, that's the sternocleidomastoideus bone or muscle that goes from behind the jawline to the front. It doesn't create volume here. That's a very common mistake. It does not. It goes really close to your neck. So if you see a side view of a head, like this is not the perfect volume, but if you see a side view of a head, you're gonna see that we get this sort of like overhang here. See, overhang and then inclination going to the back. That's what we should be focusing on. So I'm gonna add a little bit more volume here on the jawline have like a stronger jawline. There we go. You can always use the trim dynamic to clean forms up. Look at that. Beautiful. And then we can add a little bit of trapezius muscle down here. Usually on this area, there's a little bit of a, like a hole. And then soften, soften, soften. In here, we're going to have the pectoral muscle. But of course, we're not going to be seeing this pectoral muscle just yet, or not for this character. But you always want to have like the forms of the character blocked in. Because when we do the suit, when we do the cloth for this guy, it's going to be easier to have some sort of point of reference to know how big of a chest he has. Now, there's a very important muscle that we don't see because he has all this fur, but it's called the deltoid, which is right here. And this deltoid is going to push the silhouette quite a bit. So I do think I need to add it here just to get like a strong looking character. And so that everything feels a little bit more natural. There we go. So as you can see, this area, just focus on this area for now, is looking good. If we look at everything else at the same time, it's gonna look really weird, of course, because no work has been done on the other parts. But our character is looking good from the chest up. I think I wanna add a little bit of an extra volume here. I'm not convinced about the eyes, to be honest, so I'm just gonna select them and I'm gonna delete them for now. I think they're a little bit too big. So I do like the face. Like, I think that's a nice shape for the eyes right there, but there's some more work that we need to do eventually. So right now, in order to not get distracted with everything else, I'm just gonna work with this. Now, the big question here is, before we move on, is since we are already working on the head, should we separate like the cloth from the character? Like, should we have separate subtools? And the answer is yes. It's a lot easier to have everything separated so that you can work on specific things before before jumping on other parts of the character. So if I already know that this is the most important part of the skin of the character, this area right here, why not split it, right? So I'm gonna go down here to my polygroups, and you can see that right now this character has a lot of polygroups. So I'm gonna do a group visible, and then I'm gonna select specifically the parts that I wanna keep as a separate subtool, which this seems just about right. And I'm gonna say subtool, or sorry, polygroups, group visible. There we go. So now, with that done, I can go up here to the subtool palette, and I can select split, group split. Okay. So now, if I want to, I can increase the geometry on this guy and start working on the rest of the head without having to worry about the body. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing. In the next chapter, in the next video, we're going to be working more here on the face with a nicer geometry now in order to get to a better position. Because once we nail the head, or at least we get as close as possible to the final forms of the head, it's going to be a lot easier to just continue moving along with the rest of the elements. So hang on tight, guys, and I'll see you back on the next video. Bye-bye. Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to continue with the sculpture of the head, so let's get to it. This is where we left off, where we did the final split with the polygroups, and now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to turn off the body. I'm going to select the head right here, turn off this thing, just Dynamesh real quick so that everything gets closed. I usually don't like having this like weird like borders, so I'm just going to use my trim dynamic to trim all of this. This is not going to be visible anyway because it's going to be covered by cloth. And it just makes it a lot easier. So if later on you want to like have like a render of just the bust of the character, this is a very nice way to do it. Just like pretty much like clay, right? There we go. Dynamesh and then no holes. Perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into my resolution and I'm going to increase the resolution for my character. Let's Dynamesh here. There we go. And I'm going to start using my Damien standard to sketch out the general like parts of my character. Now, one thing you can do is you can similar to what we did before, you can position your image here. You can like zoom in real close to the head and then just jump into Zbrush, see through, and just match like the general look of the head like this, so that we can start getting into like the actual like shapes of the head. So he has like a really strong jawline. You can see that the eyes are really, really high there. And I'm gonna push the nose like this. There we go. See that sharp eyebrow right there? So even though I know that that's the element that I want to do, I'm going to start adding it here on the other side so that we get that sort of like definition there. So that means that here we're going to have like the element of the eye, and then here we're going to have the volume of the cheekbone. Then standard, and we can draw kind of like the mouth, or where the mouth goes. Something like that. Then this is the little pit there underneath. And yeah, that seems good. Now, of course, it might seem good when we match it there, but once we see it here, things might not look so perfect. So that's why it's very important that, yeah, even though we're kind of like tracing things, you also need to have this or develop this sort of like artistic way of matching things without having to rely on like the perfect image plane. So I am gonna take that into account. Like I know I want to have like this sort of like sharp eyebrow right here, and then it has this very like Prince looking cheekbones right here. But I need to incorporate the principles that I know about sculpture, which means that I need to push certain things in and out of depth of perspective to get exactly what we're going for. So he has like this chiseled jaw right here. So we're gonna do that. I'm gonna use my trim dynamic to get this like very squared off. There we go. And then usually you get like this sort of like volumes. It's like a donut shape here underneath the lips. So I'm gonna add it right now. See that? Let's clean this. The mouth will usually push out. It creates this sort of barrel. They sometimes call this the barrel of the mouth, because the mouth, the teeth of your mouth will push out and create this sort of element. And inside this barrel is where we're gonna have like the lips and stuff. So let me show you how I would do the lips for this guy. I'm gonna draw from the corner of the mouth and then getting ink there. There we go. That's where we're gonna have the lips. Now he's more like smiling, kind of like a small smirk. So I'm gonna add that like small smirk there. Now, as you can see, we're still missing geometry. Like we need a little bit more geometry to really capture that detail. And one of the main things that gives this character its like its looks, it's the nose. So I'm gonna really push the nose to be as close as possible to the character. He's a very stylized character. So he has this. It's not like eagled. It's not like a hook, but it's very sharp here. So again, with trim dynamic, I'm just gonna sharpen this thing. Sharpen the sides of the nose right there. Give this really sharp right there. And then with my Dynamesh standard, I'm gonna start defining like where the main areas of the nose are gonna be like this. Now, this doesn't really show on the concept, but we have this nasolabial fold, which is a fold that goes from here all the way to the mouth. Now, the bigger or the more intense that fold is, the more the weirder or the older and wiser your character is gonna look. Now, see how his mouth is really far back? That's not something that we see here on the character. So I'm gonna push the mouth forward, and we're gonna push the jawline like backwards. There we go. It's looking a little bit better. I'm gonna use my clay buildup to start like carving away from this area right here. And I'm gonna start creating the lower eyelid. Even though we don't have any eyes just yet, just having this sort of like effect here, or the forms, is gonna help me. Now on the skull, we usually have like flat surface here. I think this square looking skull is really freaking me out. So let's round this a little bit more. See how the head looks really square right now? So I'm gonna use my move brush and just gonna push this into a more like that. I think the nose is a little bit too big. Make it shorter. Move the mouse down. He looks really angry, and I don't think the character is as angry. He seems to have like a. Yeah, there we go. That's a little bit better. So just modifying the sharpness of the eyebrow right there. Now, one thing that you're gonna see is that the hair is gonna actually play a huge role on how the character looks. Now, I hate how this ears look, so I'm going to use the insert multi-mesh again to insert a couple of ears that look a little bit better. So let's erase the ears real quick. There we go. BI, and then let's go to body parts, and then we got the ears right here. It's just, again, a base mesh for the ears. So just draw the ear there. Get in there. These ears are usually really weird, really like monkey-like. So I'm just gonna move them around and position them right about there. There we go. So as you can see, we're chiseling away. We're just modifying and moving things around. I think the neck looks a little bit thin right now, so I'm just gonna make the neck a little bit stronger. And for that, I'm gonna add a little bit more volume to the muscle here, which is called the trapezius muscle, which is back here on the back side of the character, of course. There we go. Let's add like the Adam's apple. It's gonna help give a little bit more strength to the general element. And then let's try to add the eyes now. So I'm gonna go into subtool. I'm gonna append a couple of eyes. So sphere. There we go. And we're gonna make them smaller. Position them where they're supposed to be. Like I'm trying to see the distance that this guy has from the corner of the eyes to the rest of the elements. So I think that's a good size. See plugin, mirror. Okay, there we go. So now we can start adding like the eyelids, like the block out of the eyelids. So we're gonna have an eyelid here. It's like the long eyelid. It's gonna go all the way to this side. And then the short one, it's gonna be down here. I do feel that the eyes are a little bit high, to be honest. Let's do a quick block out of the hair. Remember I mentioned that the hair is gonna play a very important role. So I'm just gonna do a quick block out of the hair. It's supposed to be asymmetrical, but let's do it symmetrical for now. Here's gonna have like something like this, and then like all this volume down back here. Again, it's just a quick block out to just get the general shapes going. Let's do Dynamesh here. Dynamesh. Yeah, something like this. So we're gonna have like this, like things going on to the side. I know, guys. I know this looks super ugly, but again, it's important for me to show you the real process. Sometimes you see a lot of like very pro guys like showing you only like the end results, and they're just like tweaking a couple of wrinkles here and there. With this beginner's course, our idea is to show you all the process, like how it looks really ugly at first, and then we're gonna get all the way to the final thumbnail that you see on the video course. So yeah, so don't worry, we'll get there. I never disappoint. So let's keep going here. There we go. So I'm gonna position this in kind of like the same pose that the character has, and now having that, I'm gonna start like moving things around. Like this nasolabial fold is making him look like really old. One thing we could do is we could like quickly sculpt like the eyes, kind of if he was looking towards us like that, just to get an idea of how things are. I'm gonna move the light towards the top. So let me see what's the issue here. I think the mouth is way too further out, so I have to push it a little bit, and then we need to start carving out a bit of like a sharpness there on the brows like this. Yeah, that's definitely helping. And then this here is gonna be really soft. I'm gonna change my alpha to a round alpha to get like softer results. We're going for this like picture-ish look. And that kind of look is usually really soft. So maybe another like bevel here on the side of the nose. I can see a lot of mass like going down here. We usually have a couple of muscles here. So what we need to do is we need to imagine how this guy's gonna look finished. There we go, see? That's getting closer, right? It's just a matter of being patient, guys. Be really, really patient. Take your time. For me right now, I think we've been working on this for like 30 minutes or 40 minutes. A character like this usually takes hours. It's gonna take us probably about 12 hours to do the whole thing. If my calculations are right, it's about 12 hours for the whole project. There we go. I do want to add a little bit more of sharpness here to the front of the nose. We of course need to polish the lips. Well, we can keep them really, really, really soft for now, just like this. So now we take, see if we take the hair out, he kind of like loses his charm. That's what I mean by having like this block out of the hair. It's super simple, but it's gonna help. It's gonna help us visualize how the whole thing looks. Now here on the side of the lips, here's where we get like the volume. Perfect. This is looking good. Now let's go to the front view and make sure that this also looks good from the front view, because sometimes we worry too much about like a specific pose, and then when we take a look at other poses, it looks like weird. So for instance, I think his mouth looks really small, so I'm gonna push the corner of the mouth like a little bit further back, give it a little bit more volume, and we're still gonna have the same sort of like volume here on the profile that we're looking for on the main line, but we're also gonna get like a nicer look. I'm gonna add a little bit more cheekbone here. He kind of reminds me of like Buzz Lightyear or something. Let me carve in here. I'm not, even though I'm sculpting on this position right here, I'm looking at this silhouette right here, because I want to push this cheekbone. There we go, see? So we get that very nice like fade into the side of the head. That way we can use the trim dynamic to get that very nice plane here underneath the eye. Now this cheekbone usually goes all the way back to where the ear is gonna be. So we can give this ear a little bit of like silhouette, because his ear is a little bit funny. And again, we can try and match the same sort of visual. There we go. Let's carve a little bit here underneath that. Carbon smooth, carbon smooth, carbon smooth. It's gonna be a lot of that. Can add a little bit of an indentation here on the brow, like here. We're gonna keep it simple. We're not gonna have this. Actually, is not gonna have a lot of detail. Like we're not gonna have pores and stuff, because this is more of a cartoonish look. Let's see how we're doing on time. Okay, I'm gonna stop the video right here, guys. This is a good blocking for this first part. Like, take a look at how it was like a couple of minutes ago, like 15 minutes ago. I'm just gonna click my history. This is what we had, like nothing, and we went from having nothing, just a base, to looking super ugly, and to finally looking like something a little bit more decent. So again, this is the process, guys, and I strongly recommend you take it like one step at a time, because if you watch the whole series and then you try to do it on your own, you're gonna feel overwhelmed. It's gonna be too much to take. You're gonna want to jump ahead into like the cool parts of like textures and stuff with the render, and you're gonna neglect, or you're gonna rush through these areas which are really, really important. So in the next video, we're gonna be working on the mouth. The mouth is really important. We're gonna keep on sculpting here the details of the head, and yeah, so hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next video. Bye bye. Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to continue with the sculpting of the head, sorry. So let's jump right into it. We're going to be working with the mouth now. So for the mouth, we definitely need a little bit more resolution. So I'm going to increase the resolution here. I'm going to say Dynamesh, And I'm going to show you a nice little trick here. I'm going to use my Damien standard, but I'm going to use Alt to create like the sharp line that the upper lip usually has. See how we get this very nice sharp line? So it's going to create the nice transition there. And then we're just going to fade this out. I'm going to use my trim dynamic to kind of like flatten this and fade it into the rest of the head. Now, usually on the top lip, we get this nice little like indentation coming from the nose. So I'm just gonna add that there. Now, unfortunately, if we do Dynamesh, some of that things are gonna get lost, but that's fine. It shouldn't be that much of a loss. And immediately, just by having that sharp line, his lips look a lot sexier, right? So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go with Mask Pen, and look at this. I'm gonna mask out the top lips like this. And on this corner, very carefully, I'm gonna trim down that mask because the lower lip comes from underneath that upper lip. And it does something like this. Now the upper lip or the lower lip, you know, curls out and it has this sort of border. It's this sort of like a fleshy border down here. But the important thing is that it goes underneath the upper lip like that. See? Now we're gonna smooth this out, and depending how, let me double check here the character, how big he doesn't seem to have like super big lips or super fleshy lips, so we can also go here and with the trim dynamic just trim these lips down so they're a little bit sharper like this. But again, the important thing, or one of the important bits, is that we want these lips to look like they're coming from underneath the upper lips like that. See how that looks? A lot tighter, a lot nicer. Now we can always use the pinch brush, which is gonna pinch the lips together and make them smaller. And we can just soften them a little bit, just a little bit. I'm gonna push this out. Now he seems to be smiling a little bit too much on my side, and on the concept he's a little bit more like serious. So I'm gonna make him a little bit serious. Like not disinterested, but just serious. This eye right here, like the corner of the eye is pushing up. We're gonna be talking about the eyes shortly, but the shape of the eyes is also really important. Now, one thing that we do want is we want to give this lips a little bit more volume. And one of the ways to do it is by carving, even though it seems like counterintuitive, we're gonna carve underneath this lips, sorry. And then we're gonna add this sort of like volume here. Now the upper eyelid creates a little bit of a pocket here on the side because that's the point where a lot of the muscles connect and they create this sort of element right there. Now in this case, or in this character's case, his chin seems to be like really prominent. So his chin seems to be like pushing the lips or towards the lips quite a bit. I do like to, even though these lips are super soft, I do like to have like the border there, just to show that there's a sort of a division. And then that's the corner. In our case, we're going to be working with this closed lips character, but sometimes, or if we were doing like a character for production, we would open the mouth so that we could work. And the way to open the mouth, it's very simple. You mask out the lower jaw. You literally move open, like rotate the mouth open, and just carve in all the inside of the mouth. It's a little bit of a tedious process, to be honest, but that's the way to do it. That's one way. Another way is to wait until you have all the retopology ready, and then just do it on the retopology, like on the final retopology element. So I'm going to add a little bit of volume here. There we go. Smooth this out. And again, what that's going to help me, it's going to help me push the cheekbones up a little bit. Like that. Now let's jump onto the eyes for just a second, because I do think that the eyes need a little bit of work. Let me go back here so that we don't see that like cut, like very ugly cut. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Damien standard to create, again, the sharpness of the eyelid, because the eyelids are actually really sharp. Like you're going to see, if you take a look at like a close-up of an eye, you're gonna see that the eyelids are like borders, or like they are like steps or something. So we're gonna have this like here, then we have the the tear duct, and then the lower eyelid going beneath the upper eyelid. Again, that's important. The lower eyelid, same thing as with the lips, they go beneath the element. Now, of course, this is way too much, so I'm just gonna soften this up. I'm gonna use my move brush to push this in. Now you do want to have, like when looking at from beneath, from below, you want to have like this sort of like curvature. Let's push this in. So we do want to have a little bit of that border, but again, not that much. Now up here on this area, the eyelid is going to push in, of course, like this. And out here on the side, on this side, we usually have a little bit of like extra like skin, like going down. I'm gonna minimize the amount of like, oh, careful there. I'm gonna minimize the amount of eyelid that we have there. And then here, as I mentioned, it's a little bit of an extra flap of like skin. I'm gonna smooth the head out. Let me turn on the hair just to see again the general shape. I still think my jaw is a little bit weak, meaning that it's really small. So I'm gonna give him a stronger jaw, and I'm gonna actually bring it. He kind of looks like Owen Wilson, I think. You know that guy from oh, he's been in so many movies that wow, you know, his typical like catchphrase. So he kind of reminds me of Owen Wilson. So the secret of stylized characters, or one of the secrets of stylized characters, is keeping it simple. Like, don't overdo it, because when we overdo it, that's when things start looking like really weird and really like they go into this like uncanny valley kind of thing. So I still think that his head should be like further forward like this. His face seems to be like really flat. One of the ways I know that that's happening is the shadows. Let me take like a quick render here and see how the shadow barely touches the lips. That's exactly what we have here on the concept. So that tells me, like, if I were to analyze this thing, it tells me that this face, see how it's not that deep? It's like really flat. So that might be something that we want to incorporate in our character. So if we see it from the side here, like, yeah, of course we're gonna have a little bit of an inclination going in here like this, but then we're gonna want to have it really flat. I think I want to give him a little bit like larger nose holes right here. I'm gonna use Damien Standard again just to keep this nice and circular. His nose seems to be really straight, and right now I have this curvature here, so I'm gonna push this guy's up and bring the tip down. Same with this like wing. I'm gonna bring the wing down. It's a lot of back and forth. Now, when you're working in a studio, one of the cool things is that you're usually going to have an art lead that's going to be able to guide you through the process and say like, no, he's too flat, or yeah, I know that the character is very flat on the concept, but just add more volume, add more depth to the face. Like, that's the kind of thing that people are going to be giving you pointers about on your like daily meetings and stuff. Because trying to figure this out by your own or on your own, it's usually quite complicated. Usually the concept artist will also provide you with a little bit more information here for the characters. It's not going to be just like this, just one view and that's it. Like, you're usually going to get a little bit extra elements. Now here, what I'm going to do is, even though there's not a line, there usually like characters have a line going from the eyes down. So I'm just going to sculpt it and really soften it up, because that's going to allow me to have a little bit of a better plane there. There we go. I like how this is looking. His eyes look sad though. See how the eyes look a little bit sad? So let's fix that. And the reason the eyes look sad is because they're like very droopy. So what I'm gonna do is this. I'm gonna mask this area, which is like the brow that I quite like. And then with my move brush, I'm gonna push the eyelid up into the brow, see? And then we're gonna carve in the lower eyelid. Something like that. And with Dynamesh, that's gonna get like closer, or it's gonna get closed. So it's gonna give us a little bit of a different look. I'm gonna bring the tear duct down. Oh, let me go back here and re-mirror the eyes. I'm gonna bring the tear duct down, and it seems to really close here on the corner. It's a little bit weird, to be honest. Like the shape of the eye of this eye is a little bit weird. Just a lot of moving and pushing clay around. That's our daily routine when we're in production. So hopefully you like this process, and you're happy with how things are, because again, sometimes people think that this is magic, and it's not magic. It's a lot of patience and a lot of work. Yeah, that looks a lot better. Now, what things are we missing to make this guy look even better? Eyelashes, of course. So I can just like quickly scratch the eyelashes, or the eyebrows there, like actual hair eyebrows. And if we had the eyes like actually like nicely painted and stuff, because this guy, for instance, has his eye looking to the side. You can, of course, sculpt the eye. Some people like to do it. It's very easy. You just need to like carve in the eye and the little like reflections. And that's gonna give you a nice indication of where it's looking. See? A lot nicer, right? I still think that the head is a little bit square, and the concept seems to be a little bit more elongated. I think my eyes are a little bit too high now. So I'm gonna bring them closer in, and then just like lower them down like that. And then the chin, I think I wanna cartoonify this guy a little bit more. So I'm really gonna push the chin like forward a little bit more. And then like let's really separate it here by adding, remember Timmy Turner and his like godfather and godmother. I'm not sure the name in Spanish. It was Los Padrinos Mágicos, which is the very odd parents, I think was the name in English. There was this like superhero that he liked. That was he has like this gigantic red chin. So I'm just gonna push the chin there. So as you can see, pushing the chin, pushing the forms to get him into a more stylized approach. I think we need to sharpen the this profile right here. So I'm gonna flatten with my trim dynamic very softly to recover this sort of like, yeah, that's better. Nice. Yeah, I like it. Now again, I'm gonna try and match it here to my original character. That's looking good. And it's just a matter of smoothing down and trimming down. Now we're gonna be doing the subdivision method with this guy, and that's definitely gonna help us push the forms into a nicer place. But as you can see here, this is not looking bad. This is looking quite nice, I would say. I think we can incorporate this line here. That's gonna give it a lot more form. So see, even though we're doing like stylized character, that doesn't mean that all the principles from like traditional sculpting does not or do not apply. This actually is looking quite nice. Again, just take a look at how it looked a couple of videos back when we had absolutely nothing. I'm recording this back to back, so I have my undo history here. But if you don't, you can just like load the previous subtool and check this out. Like this is how it looked, just like a basic blob of nothing. And now after pushing this a little bit further, we're gonna have our nice element. So yeah, this is looking nice. I like it. I like it. I really like it. So I'm gonna save this real quick. Let's go up here. Let's save this as Paladin 002. And yeah, in the next video, guys, what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna jump onto other parts of the character. We're gonna start doing like the blocking of other parts of the character. So we're gonna leave the face for now, and we're gonna jump onto the arms. We're probably need to work a little bit on the arms to get them into a nicer shape, like the bicep and all that stuff, because the arms are actually quite simple. You can see here on the concept that we can split the arms as well because they're hidden beneath this thing. So yeah, hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next video. Bye-bye. Hey guys, welcome back to the next part of our series. Today we're going to continue with our character, and we're going to start with the blocking of the upper chest. So let's get to it. This is where we left off. This is our character looking quite nice, in a good position, I would say. And one good habit to have is to block in the general like shapes of the character to make sure that everything is falling into its proper place. So what I'm going to do in this video, it might be a little bit of a short video, we're just going to start adding stuff and doing a quick blocking of where things should be. So for instance, I'm going to place this sphere, I'm going to make this symmetrical, and I'm going to use this to create like the fur that the character has all around his like body. So the fur goes really high here, and it creates this like lion sort of like mane all around the character, and it covers it. It goes above the, what's the word? Above his shoulders. And we create this sort of like big mass right here. Dynamesh, of course. And I'm just gonna use my clay buildup to just give it like very quick strokes here, just to give me an idea of what this thing is, right? So it should be something like this. Now I can't see the back of the character, but I can imagine that this thing falls pretty much like a fur coat or something. So I'm probably gonna have a little bit more volume here on the back side, and then it starts getting slimmer and slimmer as it goes to the front. So yeah, this is just a quick blocking of that thing right there. If you want to be a little bit more like intense, you can use like your snake hook to give this little like fur-like appearance. We're gonna be doing a nicer sculpt with this of this thing later on. But if you want to give this like this spiky, hairy element look, just like do it like that, and that's fine. There we go. Now his body looks really weird, of course, because we have not done any work on the body, and he looks really small. So I'm gonna jump into the body, and I'm actually gonna make the body a little bit larger, bring it forward or further up, so that it matches with the proportions a little bit better. Now on this thing, he has like a big shoulder pad. So I'm not gonna do any sculpting for the shoulder pad, but what I can do is I can add like this big square. Just imagine that this is gonna be like the shoulder pad. It's really big, really thick because it has like 3 layers, and this shoulder pad's gonna be right about there. It's pretty much like touching the head of the character, so something like this, right? Perfect. So that's going to be the shoulder pad. I think the fur cut is a little bit too much. So this is why this blocking phase is really important, because before we jump into actually sculpting all these elements, we need to see what works and what doesn't work, because sometimes the concept artist will draw or will present things that look really nice on a picture, but once you have this like actual character here, it doesn't look like it's going to work. So for instance, let's add like a ring model, and this is going to be like my belt. So this is going to be like the belt, and I can use my move brush to create like it has like this spikes here on the front, and then like this spikes here on the bottom, and this belt's going to be like really tight to this character. Like he has a really tiny waist. So again, we're using this technique, this like quick like blocking of the elements, just to see how things are going to look. So here he has like this sort of like lion head, so that's kind of like the belt. This tells me that the arms and everything else, it's a little bit out of proportion, because if I take a look at the concept, and if I turn this around like this, the size of the chest and everything, it seems good, but the arms, it's a little bit small. I'm gonna go to the arm, and I'm gonna do a quick block in here. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna mask out where I imagine the bracers to be. So it's something like this. Like those are like the bracers. I'm gonna invert the mask, and I'm gonna go down here into my deformation palette, and I'm going to use this inflate deformation that's going to inflate the elements, kind of like doing an extrusion. And the reason I need to do this is to see if they fit with the rest of the character. They do seem to fit, like they're close to what I have, but the arms do seem to be longer on the concept. So I'm going to grab my arms, move this pivot point up here. I'm going to scale them down. I can rotate the pivot point and then scale with Y-axis and then just push them down. See that? So, because if I take a look at the concept, and you can see it here, there's a little bit space where we are supposed to see like the bicep. So if we were to draw here, I can imagine that this bicep is going all the way to this area right here. See? So that's like the arm, and then we got the forearm here, and then of course the hand. See how the hand is broken? It seems like it's like off center or something. That's fine. It's just this is where our work as 3D artists comes into place, because we need to find out what's the best proportion in order for us to get closer to this sort of like detail. Now for the legs, we can also start like sketching real quick. Like this is where the knee pads are gonna be, for instance. And then we had like really, really thin looking ankles. So we can like really stylize those ankles right there. This seems to be a little bit thicker, like the legs, the armor of the legs seems to be pushing a little bit further out. So think of this like again, like just a base, which is just a reference to see how the general proportions of your character is looking. Because if this doesn't look good, if the main proportions of the main elements are not looking good, then we shouldn't continue until we can fix and figure out what the main issue is. So for instance, I do like these legs. I think they look nice. I think we definitely need to push the calves out, both the outer calf and the inner calf. We got two of them, so we get that nice little like definition there. There we go. Let's push this down. Let's push this further back to really push the, this is called the gesture. So we're really pushing the gesture into like cartoon territories. I think we can make this guy slightly thinner, closer to the concept. And now we can add a plane, for instance, or a cube or something. Even a sphere is fine, just to get like a general idea of how this long looking things are gonna look. So I'm gonna use my snake hook. See how I get the snake hook out. There we go. That's like the main flap. We got cloth brushes that we're gonna be using later on, and then on the back we got like two flaps. So let's use again the snake hook to get like the two lateral flaps here. Like that, and then we got a final like back flap here, which is like that, like the main cape, right? Like that. Dynamesh. We just smooth this out. This is not the final mesh. This is not the final anything. It's just the general look. Because if this looks good, if the proportions of my character look good here, then everything else is gonna look good. A lot of people or what's the word? They don't think that this is sort of like blocking general proportion step is important. They jump right into like sculpting and stuff. But look at this, like this silhouette. That's a strong silhouette. Like if we take a look at the whole silhouette, let's do a BPR real quick so that everything is flat. That's a strong silhouette. It's a little bit feminine, I think, but that's just the way the character looks in regards to like this lower side right here. But if this silhouette works, then everything else is gonna work. What else do we have? We have, of course, the chest area, the what's the word? This like color thing. So let's add another like sphere. Let's make this like really, really small. Bring this in here. And then just like, let's push this here, and then just like carve this out so it looks like that thing from the concept, which is this sort of like very sharp color shirt thingy. Coming all the way from the back. Let's Dynamesh that real quick. So imagine all of these things like blending into the rest of the elements. That's what we're going for. Like this is like the final silhouette of our character that we're going for. And having all of these elements like present right now, it's gonna make it a lot easier to find and measure and make sure that everything looks exactly as we want. So I do think his chest looks a little bit too feminine, so I'm gonna give it a little bit more oomph on this area, like a little bit more like strength, so it's not like a wasp shirt, so something like that. And now one thing we can do is make sure that our proportions are right. So a quick way to do it is let's append a cube. Let's make this like really thin, not super thin, but just enough. Let's position here on the beginning of the hair, and then Control Alt and drag to create this thing. And then both of this, Control Alt and drag, Control Alt and drag, Control Alt and drag. And there I can see, guys, and you guys hopefully can see as well, that head, chest, navel, crotch, perfect. So the top 4 heads are perfect. Now for the legs, my personal mistake, I usually make the legs way too short. That's like my Achilles heel. So that's 2, 3, 4. Technically that's where the legs should stop, I believe. On this one we had 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5, 6, 7. So yeah, so 5, 6, 7. So that means that my legs are a little bit too long. I don't think they're too long though. Let's do a quick check. Like one thing we can do is just mask everything here, move the pivot point to the center, like right about there, invert the mask, and we can scale them down. I think if we do that, like if we scale the legs down, he's gonna look like a dwarf, and he doesn't look like a dwarf. So I am gonna keep the legs like this. Again, this is where sometimes the concept artists are not, or the concept has a lot of forced perspective and stuff that we need to ignore and follow our artistic gut to make sure that everything lines up as nicely as possible, and it looks good. So I'm gonna keep these guys. These guys are gonna be really important in order to make sure that I don't lose sight of my basic shapes right there. So as you can see, even though this is not a video or not one of the lessons that we're doing any sort of like real sculpting, having all the different shapes, like having all the main forms of the characters, it's going to be really important for me to understand how things are looking, how things are panning out, right? Now, if we turn off the fur, for instance, we're going to see that my proportions are a little bit off, and that's fine because we're never going to see those proportions. But I'm going to just like fix this real quick. So I'm going to use my inflate brush. I'm going to inflate this real quick. Dynamesh. Whoa, careful there. Let's smooth Dynamesh. There we go. Let's inflate a little bit more. Dynamesh. And then with trim dynamic, we need to bring the shoulders down. So we're going to push the shoulders down. And if you want to, you can fill all of this area. I actually think I cut more from the character than I should have. Like we should have grabbed only like the head and a little bit of the neck. But that's fine. You can even like isolate this real quick. And another quick way is brush insert. Let's do like a primitive brush. Let's do like a sphere. And we're just gonna insert this sphere right where the chest is supposed to be. Let's smooth it out a little bit and just give it like the rib cage sort of shape. There we go. Now we can just fill this in. And if we need to extract any sort of like armor and stuff from this area, it's gonna be a lot easier to do from this particular point. So this should look good. If this part without the head does not look proportionate, does not look good, then it doesn't matter how cool the head looks. That means your body, your character is looking bad. So yeah, that's it, guys. This is it for this video. I'm gonna stop it right here, and in the next one, we're gonna start focusing on some other parts. Probably we're gonna work on the cloth. So hang on tight, and I'll see you back on the next video. Bye bye.